In 1928, the world was introduced to Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse was introduced to Pete. Soon, Mickey Mouse will be 100 years old, but Pete is even older. The original Disney villain, Pete has been there since before the beginning. It's time to take a look back at Pete's early origins and his development throughout the golden age of animation through to his domestic family man arc in the 1990s until reverting back to his villainous ways by the end of the century. Please like this video to pay tribute to Pete, Disney's oldest recurring character and the ever-recurring thorn in the side of Mickey Mouse. Alice Comedies were a series of live-action animated shorts created by Walt Disney and produced by Winkler Pictures, who needed a replacement for their centerpiece Felix the Cat animated series. And the Alice Comedies were the first series by what ultimately became Walt Disney Animation Studios. The short featured a live-action young girl named Alice and an animated cat named Julius, having adventures in an animated landscape. And on February 15th, 1925, in the 15th entry in the series, entitled Alice Solves the Puzzle, Alice and Julius encounter an antagonistic bear named Pegleg Pete. In this cartoon, Pete is a collector of rare crossword puzzles who discovers that the puzzle Alice is working on is the one he's missing and demands the puzzle, leading to a confrontation with her and Julius. Pete is given the name Pegleg Pete on account of his use of whiskey, at a time when alcohol was illegal due to prohibition in the United States. Interestingly, the scene featuring Pete with whiskey was censored in the US, and the scene remained only in overseas versions. Pete would continue to appear in the Alice Comedies until the final entry, Alice in the Big League, released on August 22nd, 1927. Walt Disney needed a villain to place against his new star, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And on September 8, 1927, Pete was introduced in the 6th Oswald short, The Ocean Hop, in which Oswald and Pete enter an aeroplane race across the Atlantic Ocean. By the time producer Charles Mintz took over the Oswald series, Pete had been established as the most consistently appearing supporting character to Oswald, and Pete continued to appear in the Oswald films produced by Walter Lantz Productions until 1937, making him essentially the only cartoon character at the time to frequently appear in shorts produced by two rival animation studios. After leaving the Oswald series, Walt Disney created Mickey Mouse as a replacement, and brought back Pete from the Alice Comedies as an antagonist opposite Mickey, turning Pete from a bear into a cat. Animator Norm Ferguson, known for developing Pluto, developed Pete's character in several shorts, making him to resemble actor Wallace Beery. Walt Disney featured Pete in two of the first three Mickey Mouse cartoons, Steamboat Willie and The Galloping Gaucho, both appearing in 1928. Pete was initially called Terrible Tom in a comic strip appearing in January 1930 and underwent different names throughout the same year, including Pegleg Pete and Pegleg Pedro. Walt Disney voiced Pete in his first minor speaking role in the 1930 short The Barnyard Battle. And from 1934, Pete was voiced by veteran Disney voice artist Billy Bletcher, who voiced Pete for the first time in the Mickey Mouse short Shanghai, released on January 13th.
Get below, you swabs!
Bletcher had already voiced a number of Disney characters, including the Big Bad Wolf,
I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in!
and Horace Horsecollar,
Come out here, you rascal!
and later voiced Spike the Bulldog in a number of early Tom and Jerry shorts.
Listen, pussycat, if anything happens to me, pal, I'll poke you in the puss. I'll pulverize you. I'll pound you to pieces. That's what I'll do, pound you to pieces, like this.
And even Tom Cat in one of the few cartoons where he does speak, The Bodyguard.
In me power.
Despite being only 5'2", Bletcher had a very loud, booming baritone voice.
No dogs allowed. See?
Pete would first appear in colour in Moving Day, released on June 20th, 1936. In the shorts from The Cactus Kid onwards, Pete had been depicted with a peg leg, which was dropped in Moving Day. And it was from this cartoon onward that Pete's design became firmly established in the form that we became familiar with, and his role solidified as the recurring and ever-present arch-nemesis of Mickey Mouse, and later Donald Duck and Goofy as well. In various cartoons, Pete would portray different professions like dog catcher or construction foreman, and would appear on either side of the law, but always as an overbearing, cantankerous bully. In previous cartoons, Pete played the role of an outlaw, but in Moving Day, he is a brutal law enforcer, a sheriff who serves Mickey and Donald Duck with an eviction notice. However, his roles would range throughout the 1940s and 1950s era of classic Disney shorts, including sympathetic characters. In the 1942 cartoon Symphony Hour, Pete is a manager of an opera house who sponsors Mickey's orchestra in a concert which goes terribly wrong. In 1944, Pete played the role of a passionate trombone player in the short Trombone Trouble. And in the 1952 Goofy cartoon, How to Be a Detective, Pete is the chief of police who spends the entire cartoon hiding from his fiancée, whom he is supposed to marry. As Mickey Mouse's popularity declined, Pete would serve as an antagonist for Donald Duck, and on occasion Goofy, and even Chip and Dale. Pete's final appearance during the golden age of American animation came in the Chip and Dale cartoon The Lone Chipmunks, released on April 7th, 1954. Here, Pete plays the role of a bank robber named Black Pete, and was still voiced by his original voice actor, Billy Bletcher. Pete wouldn't be seen again for almost 30 years, until he appeared in the 1983 theatrical featurette Mickey's Christmas Carol, an animated reenactment of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. In the special, Pete made a memorable appearance as the Ghost of Christmas Future, and was voiced by Will Ryan. In the late 1980s, Pete would make a handful of cameo appearances in a few episodes from the first season of DuckTales, as well as a brief cameo in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, before appearing as the main villain in the 1990 Disney special The Prince and the Pauper, where he played the role of the greedy and ruthless Captain of the Guard, and was voiced by Arthur Bogart, who would later voice Pete again in various Disney video games. Pete became a main character in the 1992 original Disney animated series Goof Troop, which centered on Goofy, a single father who moves back to his hometown of Spoonerville with his son, Max, and the two end up moving in next door to his high school friend Pete, a used car salesman and owner of Honest Pete's Used Cars. In Goof Troop, Pete is depicted as a domestic family man. Pete is married to Peg, a real estate agent whose name is a play on Pegleg Pete, Pete's name from the original Mickey Mouse cartoons. The couple have two children, a daughter named Pistol and a son named PJ, short for Pete Jr., who gets on well with Goofy's son Max in contrast to the tense and uneasy relationship between Pete and Goofy, as Pete becomes increasingly neurotic due to Goofy being a bad neighbor. As revealed in the first episode, Pete's animosity towards Goofy goes back to high school, as Pete blames Goofy for him losing a high school football game. Pete was voiced in Goof Troop by Jim Cummings, who would become the regular voice for Pete, continuing to voice the character in most major Disney projects ever since. Goof Troop ran for 78 episodes, and during its run, Pete also made a cameo appearance in the 1994 episode of Bonkers, entitled Cartoon Cornered. Goof Troop also spawned two films, a Goofy movie in 1995 and a sequel, An Extremely Goofy Movie, in 2000. And in both of these films, Goofy and Pete are much better friends compared to the series, as the two are shown to be working together as more photographers for kids' portraits, and Pete even gives Goofy parenting advice on occasion. Pete appeared in the 1999 direct-to-video film Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, in which Pete appeared in the story A Very Goofy Christmas. Here, Pete is still Goofy's neighbor, but is responsible for Goofy's son Max no longer believing in Santa Claus. Pete appears again later in the film in the story Mickey and Minnie's Gift of the Magi, as Mickey's boss selling Christmas trees. By the end of the century, Pete had reverted back to his villainous ways, starting in Mickey Mouse Works, in which he appeared as a run-of-the-mill criminal, frequently bullying the other characters and occasionally kidnapping Minnie Mouse. This villainous trend would continue in shows like House of Mouse, including its 2002 direct-to-video film Mickey's House of Villains, where Pete and other Disney villains take over the club, as well as other films like The Three Musketeers, where Pete again appeared under the name Pegleg Pete. Pete was last seen in 2023, reprising the role he played in Steamboat Willie, this time in the Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse episode Steamboat Silly. Let us know in the comments what your earliest memory of Pete is and which were some of your favorite appearances of his. Pete enjoys center place among Disney's Hall of Villains as the original cartoon bully, and who set the standard for all animated villains from the black and white silent era onwards. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Please like this video if you learned something today, and remember to share this video in order to give Pete more recognition. I'll be back again soon, so remember to subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell notification because you don't want to miss the next video. Until next time, stay safe and stay tuned for more cartoon history.